Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to let everyone know how to use the GoToWebinar technology so we can make this webinar as interactive as possible. So first, you should see the control panel pictured on your screen right now. If you don't, it may be because it has been minimized. So you can pull it back out by going to the Grab tab. There's also an attendee list where you can see all of the participants on the call and see who of your colleagues have logged on. There are two ways to answer questions. One is through the question pane. So on your control panel, you'll see a pane where you can type in your questions. It will send to us, and we can respond to you privately, or if it's a question we feel like the whole group would benefit from, we can respond to everyone. Another way for you to participate is to raise your hand. So there's a raise hand icon that you can click on if you would like to say something or if you have a question. And so I would just like to test that out very quickly. And so if everyone can tell me, if you can hear me, please raise your hand. This is good to make sure that you can hear me clearly and make sure everyone knows where that raise hand function is. So just take a second. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Okay. Great. All right. Looks like it's working. Thank you, everyone. So before we get started, I just want to let you know you can minimize any of the panes by clicking on the plus or minus button at the top left of each pane. You can minimize them or expand them. And then before we get started, I just want to warn folks that from time to time folks have had some audio trouble. If for some reason you're having difficulty being heard, you'll want to make sure that you're not muted on your phone or on your computer, and that you've entered the audio pin provided to you at the beginning of the call. If that doesn't work, we recommend hanging up and calling back in and being sure to enter the audio pin. So I think that's all, and we'll get started.
Welcome. This is Lisa Nitza, Vice President for Strategic Partnerships at Achieving the Dream. And this is the inaugural session of our Technology Solution Webinar series. We're very excited to be kicking things off with such a terrific story that you're going to hear in a few minutes. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Achieving the Dream YouTube channel following the presentation. I'd like to just quickly let you know who the Achieving the Dream staff are that have made this possible. Caitlin Donnelly works with me in Strategic Partnerships. Carrie Henderson, Associate Director of Programs and Policy, works with Melanie, who you've just heard from, and Melanie Mulvey, Assistant Director of Programs and Policy, is really the one who you will be hearing from throughout, as she's been helping us with all of the technology associated with this. The Technology Solution Webinar series is something we're very excited about. Today we're going to have a packed agenda, and we have 4 panelists, Dr. Gregory Williams and Dr. Donald Wood from Odessa, Michael Taft and Natalie Kistner from ZOGOTECH. They'll be doing a terrific presentation of a case study, and then we'll be moving into questions and answers and hopefully hearing from as many of you as we can with the time that's allotted. Then we'll tell you about the next Solutions webinar coming up in a month. Next. The Solution Webinar series really grew out of Achieving the Dream, listening to its colleges in the network, and understanding that increasingly the institutions that we are working with are turning to technology to improve their student success outcomes, and that technology does not have all of the answers, but it is increasingly a part of the solution. So we wanted to create an opportunity to provide information about promising technology solutions that are out there, and also give the colleges in our network an opportunity to stay informed in a very rapidly changing technology environment as they are searching for what works in improving student success outcomes. Next. The panelists today are Dr. Gregory Williams from Odessa and Dr. Donald Wood from Odessa. You'll be hearing quite a bit from both of them. And from ZOGOTECH, Michael Taft, the CEO, and Natalie Kistner, who is the Director of Business Development. Next. And I will turn it over at this point to our panelists, who will take it from here.
All right. Good afternoon or morning, everyone, depending on where you are in the country. This is Gregory Williams. We thank you all for being here and for taking part in this presentation and in allowing Odessa College to share its story. I think it's a wonderful story, and I think there are a number of people who played a great role in this. We'd like to thank Achieving the Dream for all that they've done and for giving us the foundation and the format and the support to be able to do the work we're doing and also to take all of our work to a new level. We appreciate that so much. We also thank the ZOGOTECH team led by Michael Taft. I will say, Michael, you looked a little comfortable in your picture there. The rest of us are stuffed shirts, I guess, but that's why you creative types are able to do so much good work. But we appreciate what you and your team have done, Michael, and we thank you for that. Also, I'd like to thank the Odessa College family. It is a wonderful unit. We have our board members, our employees, our students, and our community. And we're doing some very, very good things, in my opinion, and I think we're doing some things that will help to impact the entire nation. As a part of that, we begin by questioning everything with the desire to be the very best. That is our goal, that is our standard, and those are our expectations. Additionally, we believe that not enough has been done in the areas of student success, not only at our institution, Odessa College, but also throughout the nation. Next slide. So the question becomes, why hasn't education worked for our students? And I think there are a number of things, as we've listed some of those here, but I believe too many students start and don't finish their coursework. And as we know, if they don't complete their coursework, then they can't experience with few exceptions, they can't experience the amazing things that are available for them in our nation. So that's a critical thing that we need to look at. Also, students who don't graduate are not generally able to take full advantage of other opportunities. They're not able to assist their families in the way that they want. They're not able to complete something that they started, and this could begin a trend in their lives, and we don't want that to happen. Next. So we looked at a culture of comfort, and we talk about that, and I think that's where we were as community colleges and probably or possibly as universities as well. We were okay with what we were doing. And I think as community colleges, we thought we were doing okay, but we didn't have the data. And I believe that's one of the places where Achieving the Dream have helped us so much, because they have allowed us to look at ourselves, to be critical of what's going on, and also to be data informed. And I think that's been a very important piece of this operation. When you talk about a lack of accountability, et cetera, we need to realize that the game has changed. Our communities have begun to expect more from us, and we need to provide that. Also, our philosophy at Odessa College is not to let others set standards for us, but we want to lead, and we use that as a guiding principle. And finally, for this slide, we want to establish a new standard. We want to help not only our college and our state, but also the nation. We believe there should be a new standard, a new expectation. We believe that instead of only 20 to 25% of individuals in our country having a credential or degree, we believe that that should at least be 50% before we begin our next conversations. Next slide. Part of our thinking, as you see here, is that we're not serving enough students. So we decided that we needed to listen. From those listening sessions, we needed to learn. We needed to be coached by those who we serve, and we needed to learn from that. We then needed to create a plan which, as we said, recognized and acknowledged the concerns and limitations that were there, and a plan to move forward. We knew that we weren't quite accomplishing what we needed to do, and from there we needed to respond. And early on in my presidency, after talking to the board, after talking to the administrative team, talking to the faculty and staff, we decided that we can't be afraid to respond, that we have to accomplish many things, and we need to move forward. Next slide. So we started with an examination. We wanted to examine our institutional performance, and in that you could have a bit of controversy because I was going to my deans and vice presidents, and we needed to look at how our individual instructors were performing. And I think that's something that many colleges don't do because of the things that go with that. But we knew that that needed to be done. We knew that every person in the college, including our faculty, our administration, our board, every person needed to be effective. And if we're not being effective, then we need to alter or change our behavior. So that was a part of this process. We also wanted to look at how we connect with and care for our students. We didn't feel that we were doing that at a high enough level and that we were being effective in that regard. And our number one principle, we think, or one of our main principles, I should say, was to do what's most important, and that is to care about students and their lives. We needed to care about the end product. We needed to know what needed to be done, and we needed to get there. And ZOGOTECH gave us the information that we needed. So we brought the outstanding product, and we give them a lot of credit. But next slide. But we weren't really being effective with that until we brought on Dr. Wood, and you'll hear from him here in just a moment. One of the things, or three things I like to talk about, are decisions, directions, and destination. And we had to make a decision as a college, again, who we wanted to be and where we were going to go. And then we needed to share that. That decision formed and created a direction for us so that every decision should lead us in that direction. And then finally, we talked about our destination, which was to become the best community college in the nation. And so we wanted to go from having a culture of comfort to a culture of concern. We wanted to go from it's not my problem to I want to be part of the solution. We wanted to move from I work very hard and I'm tired and I have all these things going, but it's more important to be effective. And we wanted to move in a direction that didn't emphasize the idea or the concept that students aren't prepared. We wanted to say I will work with these students where they are. So we were looking at individual instructors. We were looking at effectiveness throughout the campus, and then we also at that time decided to create associate dean positions. And these positions are designed to focus on instruction. We wanted to improve instruction. We then made the decision to hire Dr. Don Wood, who has been a researcher in the past, who's done great work in the area of biology and science. And we brought him on and to help us to improve instruction. And he went to work. He had some great ideas. He brought those forward. And then my job was to support him in that regard. So at this point, I will bring forward Dr. Don Wood, who's an exceptional educator, even though I don't know if he even claims to be one yet. He's still a scientist at heart, but he is doing some outstanding work. Dr. Wood.
Thank you. Thank you. Basically, the charter that the Associate Dean of Arts and Sciences was given was to improve instruction. And I have to admit that when Dr. Williams first put that charge on me, I had to be honest with him and said, if I knew how to improve instruction, I would have already done it. So I had to start somewhere, and that led us to the data, which is here you see the data up there in the slide. We had high dropout rates, we had low success rates, and what I wanted to do then is gain an understanding of why that was so. And for that, I turned to a technology that Dr. Williams and the board had bought a couple years ago, or a couple years previously, and that was the technology provided by ZOGOTECH'S. So let me turn it over to Michael, who has a large role to play in the rest of the story.
Okay. All right, so our company, ZOGOTECH, we deal with software and support for community colleges to help them use data more effectively. Over the last 11 years, we've been very focused on community colleges. And we believe that community colleges are doing the hard work in higher education, and we believe that we can help a lot in that area. And we think that some of the ways that we can help are providing data in the number of points that you see here. So through developmental education, tracking cohorts, linking interventions to outcomes, and so on. I wish I could tell you that the software is going to instantly make the college data-driven, but it really comes down to the people at the institution. So we've worked with some 50, 60 community colleges throughout the country, but it really, the difference in how Odessa and many of our other colleges have made a change is through the people. So we have some of the vision from Dr. Williams and execution and that Don have done and so on. So that really makes a big difference. And more than technology, that's going to make the biggest difference. And internally as our company, we try to work a lot with colleges to help them use the data more effectively, so it's not just about the technology. We brought on a number of people that had previous higher education experience. For example, Natalie Kistner is going to talk next. She's a former institutional researcher at a 2-year school, and so she'll work with the colleges to help them use data. So, Natalie, you want to take the next slide?
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, thank you, everyone. So as Mike mentioned, I was the institutional researcher at an Achieving the Dream college prior to joining ZOGOTECH. And I think we were in a situation where we had the focus and the real commitment to using data to improve student success, but we were lacking some of the tools and technologies that would allow us to get there. So basically it was easier said than done at that time for us. And so we faced a lot of challenges, some of them many of you may be dealing with as well, that the ZOGOTECH has really been explicitly designed to help overcome. Just a few of them that I'll mention here. One is that, you know, in institutional research I spent a lot of my time pulling data for people, responding to requests for ad hoc queries, because the people who really were craving that data and wanting to do something with those data didn't have the ability to do so, or didn't have the ability to access it. So advisors, deans, and others. There was also a real lack of coordination of data on the campus, because those same advisors and deans and others were maintaining a lot of information on their own. So Excel spreadsheets, access databases about, you know, who attended orientation or who had come to see an advisor, and we couldn't really connect that all together, tying interventions and outcomes the way that we needed to. And then kind of the last thing I'll mention is that this shift from access to success that we're all part of here with Achieving the Dream, it's requiring us to look at a lot of things that we hadn't previously, a lot of metrics like persistence and course success and completion. But our ERP systems, they don't have that information stored. There's no field in your ERP that's labeled persistence. So we have to calculate those things, and that proves to be a bit of a challenge as well, because you have to identify where in the ERP you get the information that you need to calculate, and then how do you go through the process of, you know, where are the exceptions and who do you include and not include, how you create a cohort of students, and so on. So there's really a lot that once you tackle this task of becoming more data informed, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that needs to happen that we don't always realize just how challenging it is. And as you can see here on this slide, that's really where ZOGOTECH is has tried to contribute. So I will turn it back over to Dr. Wood now, who's going to tell you about the drop rate improvement program, which I think y'all will find really, really pretty impressive. So thank you all.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm going to go through the data fairly quickly because I'm conscious that we're running down on time here. In the next slide, what you're going to see is basically the starting point for the program that we've called the Drop Rate Improvement Program, where we noticed that we had a number of instructors who year on year had very low drops from their classes and instructors who year on year had fairly high drops from their classes. And when we looked at the data further, we found out that we looked at the students they were teaching, and we talked to some of them. And in the next slide, why the different drop rates, and I think many of you will relate to the quotes here. I'm not going to go through it in the interest of time, but there are a lot of reasons people have, and people understand why there are different drop rates. My class is more rigorous than your class. My class is later than your class, and so on and so forth. So we took a look at it from the standpoint of who were the students that they were teaching, and we looked at them and demographically there was no difference. They still had the same proportions of males and females. Ethnicities were similar, and we asked a simple question: can you turn a high drop rate instructor into a low drop rate instructor simply by changing the mix of students they teach? Utilizing the technology from ZOGOTECH, I was actually able to figure this out in about 2.5 hours with the slide that you see here. There is no way that you can take a group of students who and give them to the high drop instructors and have them perform in low drop rate manner. Something was going on either with the low drop rate instructors or the high drop rate instructors that accounted for these data. So the next step in the process was to query the instructors who had low drop rates, and what we found out, and again I'm going to be very quick here, is that it wasn't the way they taught that mattered, it was how they interacted with their students. And it was the student interactions that really, really made the difference. And when we went back and then introduced the Drop Rate Improvement Program, asked instructors to change the way they approached the students they were teaching, what you see is in the next slide an extraordinary improvement in one semester. You're looking with one semester. A 3-year average of drop rates on the left-hand side of 18 to 28%, and on the right-hand side you can see that every one of those instructors improved dramatically. When you look at the both online and lecture courses, next slide, you can see that the improvements that we noticed in fall 2011 have continued until this latest year. The drops from our college are 5% and 7% respectively for online and web and lecture courses. And another surprising outcome from it in the next slide, we see that in every 8 Achieving the Dream disaggregated student cohort, male, female, Hispanic, under 21, Pell Grant students, every single one, success rates have absolutely soared for our first time in college students. These results are very exciting for us, and our Achieving the Dream, we finally got, after many years of working with our data coach, Brad Phillips, he finally came to me in 2013 and said, hey, you guys are finally doing it right. Okay, and with that, I would like to turn it over for Dr. Williams with a few last words.
Dr. Wood, we appreciate your speed in going through a very complex and outstanding program. You did a great job. As you know, we and other colleges have significant challenges, but we all have to be in the fight together. And we've talked about some of the common barriers to solving these problems, individuals thinking it's not our problem, et cetera. But we know we have some challenges with open access, and students come to us as they are. We get the best students we can get, and that's the situation. But I think our universal outcome needs to be that it's very important to keep students in class. And that's a departure from where we've been before in our university and college systems. We've in many cases encouraged students to drop, but we think you should develop relationships with students. You should cultivate those. You should assist students as much as you can, help them, and again, form those relationships so that we can hold on to our students, keep them in class, and then the results are what you've seen in the data shared by Dr. Wood. We're now open for Q&A.
Thank you very much, all of the presenters. That was an incredibly exciting set of outcomes. And what we'd love to do is take questions from the audience, and you can either type your question into the question panel or click the raised hand icon, and Melanie will then open up the mics.
We have a question already. We have, here we go. So the question is, if there is time, I'd love to hear Dr. Wood elaborate on the specific interventions with those faculty. Was this training, mentoring, threat, reward? What got them to make these changes?
That was a wonderful question. It actually takes a whole village to transition into the areas that we went into. And we spent time, Dr. Williams, myself, and others, met with all the department chairs. We met with the head of the faculty senate. The first step in the process was to be totally transparent, let everybody see the details of the data that led to the conclusions that I showed on the screen. Let them ask questions. They can ask any questions, and they were very hard questions, good questions, and then ask them in good faith, basically. Sat down with each of the individual instructors who had very high dropout rates. Those were not easy conversations, but the conversation was along the lines that the data showed it's not what you're teaching, it's not how you teach, it's not your pedagogical approach, it's a certain connectivity. And there's hundreds, thousands of anecdotes about how to improve the connectivity, but basically there are 4 areas that we'd like you to touch. And those 4 areas were what I showed on the screen. And they did it in good faith. And Dr. Williams and I every day would look at the drops from the class. I'll be honest with you, we didn't believe it at first. We had one instructor who had 35% of students drop from that particular instructor's class the semester before, and ended the fall semester teaching the same number of students with only 2 drops using that. And as the faculty began to realize that it was in their power, to keep those kids in class, we got enormous buy-on, and we scaled it to include 100% of the college in the following semester. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. And a follow-up question, can you share specific ideas of how the instructors changed and how they can change the way that they were interacting with students? So I think you touched on that a little bit, but I think they'd like some more examples.
Could you kind of repeat? Say that. I'm not sure I followed that question. How?
Sorry. Specific examples of how the faculty changed how they were interacting with students.
Slide 19.
Yeah, the examples were first and foremost and most important is you have to talk to the students as if you know them, and that begins with knowing their names. As soon as possible from the first day of class, know who your students are. The second thing is that from the very beginning, it's incredibly important to establish a connection with the student, and that means that you've got to be alert to anything that is coming from the student. Like if they come to class and they're sort of drowsy or they're texting or they're doing something, you've got to interact with them. You've got to say, hey, that's not appropriate, what's going on, that kind of thing. Intervene. And especially after the first exam, if you've got students that are failing or don't do well, you need to know why they're not doing well. And for that, you really need to meet with them. You've got to spend some time interacting with the student one-on-one so the student knows that you care about them. If the only time you ever interact with a student is when you come into the beginning of the class and say, hello, class, and then at the end say, goodbye, class, the student really doesn't feel that you've made any kind of connection with them. You got to know what's going on. And at the end, the last thing is students require a high degree of structure. They really, really, really require a high degree of structure. And the low drop rates, instructors uniformly had very, very well-drawn, tightly drawn syllabi for their courses. On the other hand, they were also flexible when students came to them with problems. So it wasn't that they simply put a syllabus out there and said, you know, do this or you'll fail. If a kid missed an exam, was late with an assignment, etc., they talked to the students. And if it made sense, they made some allowance for it. So those four areas are really the critical core of the drop rate improvement program. And over time, here's what will happen. The instructors now know better who the students are they are teaching. Why? Because they know the students better. And guess what happened? They started to change how they taught the students because they started to understand what was working and what wasn't working. So it ultimately has become, over the past 3 years, a very symbiotic relationship where the instructors now eagerly seek out the students, trying to understand who they are, what they're looking for, etc., and the students know that Odessa College is a place where they can approach their instructors.
Let me add to what Dr. Wood has said. And I think that it's important to know that many of our students come from difficult or challenged backgrounds and difficult circumstances, whether they be financial, whether they be educational or other. And we know that life happens to them, and when you have fewer resources, life seems to happen more often. So we need to be a sound base. We need to be a peaceful location. We need to be a place where a student can feel comfortable and know exactly what to expect. And that's one of the things that we ask from our faculty. And we've all have heard this, but I think we forget about it sometimes. But before you can teach someone, you have to reach them. You have to establish a relationship. You have to let me know that you care about me, and then I'll listen more intently. I'll go to war with you in terms of the classroom. I will help you as a faculty member. I will be supportive of you, me being the student and you the faculty member, and try to connect with you as well. So once you lay out the framework, and if you reach your hand out to the student first, the students will reach back, and they will try to also help to cultivate the kind of environment that is great for learning.
And an extraordinary piece of information that I have to add to this is that we focus this program on keeping the kids in the classroom so that they finish the class. What we never anticipated was that actually the percentage of students that actually drop out of college has fallen as well. Because imagine the situation now, every kid walks into every classroom and the teacher welcomes them. They now have, as Dr. Williams said, a safe, welcoming environment. And it's proving to be, and what the data that I showed you includes not just the data of all the kids that dropped a class, but all the kids that dropped out of college as well. That's now below 5%. And why? Because the kids on this campus know that we really do care.
Dr. Wood and Dr. Williams, I was wondering if you could just help us understand how does collecting the data with the technologies that you've been working with ZOGOTECH, how has that helped you with this outcome and with other outcomes? Are there other outcomes that you have been using the ability to manipulate and collect the data and understand the data to improve?
I'm going to give it to Dr. Williams in a minute, but what I want to say is, remember on his slide when he talked about transitioning the college to a culture of concern? The data are the heart of showing people why they should care. We provide our instructors every semester with the data on their drops and success rates. We work from those data, and that allows every segment of the college to actually understand where they are and when they get better, how they're getting better. I don't know, Dr. Williams, that's more.
I think it's very important. One of the early conversations that Dr. Wood and I had was around the idea of how we should perform as an institution. And you heard me use this word, and I probably overuse it, but the word is effective. Each and every one of us has to be effective. Each and every one of us has a number. And we must work with we work with our institutional effectiveness team of trying to establish numbers for everyone. So as Dr. Wood pointed out, we can talk about faculty who are in arts and sciences. We can talk about our CTWE faculty. We know how well they do with the students in their classroom from semester to semester. We know the success rates of their students. We know how their students transition. We know how well they're keeping students in class, how well they're doing a number of things around that. Also, as an institution, we know how we're trending and how well we're performing. So we try to keep every bit of data that we can so that we can have as much information as we can about our students and about our institution.
Thank you. That's just music to our ears of achieving the dream, as I'm sure you know. I think we're at this point. We're going to need to wrap things up. I want to thank the panelists enormously for your time and for this wonderful presentation. And to let those on the webinar know that we've included our presenters' contact information on this slide for you to be able to follow up if you would like. And there will also be a follow-up email coming to you with information from the presentation and how to follow up with anybody who you've been listening to here if you want to have additional conversations. And Melanie, at this point, I think I'll turn it over to you because I know you have a closeout poll for everybody.
Thanks, Lisa. So before we close up here, I just want to thank everyone for all of your questions, and we'll make sure to follow up on any unanswered questions. We just want to make sure we get you out of here on time. And before we go, we'd appreciate it if you could please participate in the poll that will come up on your screen here. So you should see a poll that asks you to select all of the statements with which you agree. So this call was useful and informative. I enjoyed the webinar format. This webinar gave me new ideas that we could implement. There was enough time for question and discussion, and this call did not meet my expectations. So you can select all that apply, and I'll just give everyone a minute to answer. So I'll give you, okay, great. Looks like we have a lot of folks participating. We'll give another 30 seconds for everyone to answer. We really appreciate your feedback, especially as we're kicking off this webinar series. This feedback will help us as we continue to tailor the webinars to the interest of our network. All right, just one more if everyone can get it in there. Okay, great. All right, thank you all so much, and I'll let Lisa close us out.
We have our next webinar on Thursday, October 9th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's Montgomery County Community College and Ad Astra Information Systems. Registration will be included in the follow-up email that you'll get from today's webinar. And we look forward to hopefully having you join us then. And we'll look forward to follow-up from this webinar. Again, thank you very much to our presenters, and thank you to Melanie for organizing all of us so well. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.